What's up everyone? Welcome back to Mindcode Vault, the channel where we decode the psychology behind human behavior so your brain can finally work for you instead of against you. Real quick before we dive in, I used to be so bad at conversations that I once tried to compliment someone and accidentally insulted their shoes, their job, and their sit in one breath. So, trust me, I needed this information more than anybody. Today we're cracking open 14 powerful secrets from how to talk to anyone that will completely transform the way people see, hear, and respond to you, whether you're building a business, chasing opportunities, or just trying to survive social situations without wanting to disappear into the floor. If you're new here, smash that subscribe button, drop a comment telling me your most awkward conversation ever, and share this with someone who desperately needs a communication glow up, because today's video might honestly be the most useful thing you watch all week. Now let's stop wasting time and get into the secrets, because every conversation you're not armed with this knowledge is a connection, an opportunity, or a relationship you're leaving on the table. There is a moment most people never forget. It happens at a party, in a boardroom, on a first date, or during a job interview. You open your mouth, and the words come out, but something is off. The other person's eyes drift. This smile becomes polite rather than genuine. They nod, but they're already looking past your shoulder for someone more interesting. And in that silent, devastating second, you feel it, the particular sting of being invisible, not ignored exactly, but somehow not quite there, not quite real to them. If you've ever felt that sting, this is for you, because here's what nobody tells to you about communication. It has almost nothing to do with what you say. The words you choose, the facts you present, the arguments you construct, they matter far less than the invisible architecture of connection that either exists between two people or doesn't. Most people go their entire lives believing the problem is that they're not smart enough, not funny enough, not interesting enough. They rehearse better stories, they memorize jokes, they Google how to start a conversation, and still, they walk away from interactions feeling like something is missing, like they're performing a play where everyone else somehow got the script and they didn't. Leil Lowndes spent decades studying that script as a communication consultant who worked with Fortune 500 companies, trained executives and coached everyone from politicians to shy introverts. She compiled something extraordinary, a practical, psychologically grounded guide to becoming the kind of person that other people genuinely want to talk to, remember, and help. Her book, How to Talk to Anyone, isn't a collection of party tricks. It's a deep map of human social behavior, translated into techniques so precise that once you learn them, you start seeing them everywhere in every conversation, every negotiation, every first impression. What follows are 20 of the most powerful, most transformative secrets from that book, explored not as a list of tips but as a genuine education in what it means to connect with another human being. These aren't hacks. They are, in the truest sense, skills, and like any skill, they change your life, not when you read about them, but when you actually use them. Let's start with the secret that underlies everything else. The first secret is one that Lowndes calls the big baby pivot, and it's about something almost embarrassingly simple: where you point your body. When most people meet someone new, they turn their head to acknowledge them while their torso stays aimed in another direction. It seems minor, it's not. Your body language communicates your true level of interest far more accurately than your words ever will. And when your heart isn't pointed at someone, literally, physically, they feel it. They feel like an afterthought, like someone you're tolerating rather than engaging with. The technique is this: when someone is introduced to you or begins speaking to you, rotate your entire body toward them, not just your head, your shoulders, your chest, your hips. Give them what Lowndes calls a full frontal orientation, the kind of complete physical attention that signals without a single word that they are the most important thing in the room to you right now. This sounds almost too simple to be meaningful, but test it. The next time someone speaks to you, give them your full body versus just your head, and watch their energy change. Watch how they open up. Watch how they start talking more, leaning in more, smiling more. You've given them a gift they'll never consciously name but will absolutely field on professional settings. This becomes even more powerful when you're in a meeting and a colleague begins speaking. Pivot toward them with your full body. In an era when most people in conference rooms are half engaged with their phones, the person who gives complete physical attention stands out immediately, not as someone who is trying hard, but as someone who is genuinely present. And genuine presence is so rare that it reads almost like charisma. The second secret builds on this idea of presence and pushes it further. Lowndes calls it sticky eyes, and it addresses one of the most common, most damaging social habits that almost nobody is aware of. Most people break eye contact too soon. You look at someone while they're speaking, but as soon as they finish, your eyes drift away to the room, to your drink, to anywhere but them. And every time you do that, you're sending a message: I was interested in what you were saying, but now that you've stopped, I'm moving on. Sticky eyes means keeping your gaze on someone just a half beat longer than feels natural. Not staring, not the uncomfortable locked eye intensity of a challenge, just a gentle, warm, lingering look that communicates, I'm still with you. I'm still thinking about what you just said. You matter to me beyond just the utility of your words. The psychological effect of this is profound. It makes people feel seen, and being seen is one of the deepest human needs there is. In a world of distraction, of scrolling feeds and fractured attention, the person who makes you feel truly seen becomes almost magnetic. Apply this in a sales context and the results can be dramatic. Apply it in a romantic relationship and the results can be transformational. Apply it in a job interview, where the interviewer is used to candidates who get nervous and look away, and suddenly you are the candidate who seemed confident, genuine, and really interested. None of impressions came from your qualifications. They came from where your eyes rested for an extra 2 seconds. The third secret is about what happens before you say a single word, and it's grounded in something evolutionary and deep. Lowndes calls it the flooding smile. Most people smile. As a reflex, the moment they see someone, their face automatically produces the social smile. The one that essentially says, I acknowledge your existence and mean you no harm. It's automatic, it's fast, and it's essentially meaningless to the part of the brain that reads emotional signals. It's the smile equivalent of saying fine when someone asks how you are. The flooding smile is different. It's slow. It's deliberate. When you meet someone's eyes, you hold for just a moment, a genuine beat of recognition, of actually taking them in, and then you let the smile move across your face like warmth spreading, like light coming up. The key is the delay. The delay is what makes it feel real, because a smile that comes instantly reads as automatic. A smile that comes after you've truly looked at someone reads as a response, a reaction to the specific, irreplaceable person in front of you. The neurological impact of this is well documented in social psychology research. Humans are extraordinarily good at detecting fake smiles even when they can't articulate what they're seeing. Something in the limbic system registers the inauthenticized but a slow, considered smile, one that seems to grow from genuine recognition triggers. Something warm and reciprocal in the person receiving it. They feel, irrationally but powerfully, that you find them delightful. Think about that in the context of a first client meeting, a job interview, a networking event. You haven't said anything yet. You haven't had to be clever or impressive. But you've already created a feeling in that person, a feeling they'll associate with you, simply by choosing to smile differently. The fourth secret addresses the most universal social anxiety there is, walking into a room full of strangers. Whether it's a professional mixer or friend's party or an industry conference, this experience reliably produces in most people a particular cocktail of emotions: self-consciousness, the urge to hide near the food table, and a feeling that everyone else somehow belongs here and you are somehow an outsider. Lowndes has a technique she calls make a wood seat, the deliberate use of an unusual accessory or conversation piece as a social catalyst. The idea is simple and brilliant. Wear or carry something that invites curiosity. Not something so bizarre it reads as desperate for attention, but something with a story, an unusual pin, a distinctive bag, a book with an interesting cover, a piece of jewelry that has history. The goal is to give strangers a reason to approach you, a conversational entry point that doesn't require them to summon courage or face the fear of rejection. They're not asking about you, they're asking about the thing. And from that innocent, low-stakes opening, the conversation begins to flow. This is a profound inversion of the usual social strategy. Most people at uncomfortable social events spend their time trying to think of things to say, working up the courage to approach, rehearsing openness in their heads. The what seat strategy removes that burden entirely. You become approachable without having to do the approaching. And in environments like professional networking events, where everyone is performing a carefully maintained confidence they may not actually feel, being the person others approach first is an enormous advantage. Modern application of this extends online. In the age of LinkedIn profiles, Twitter bios, and professional websites, your digital what seat is the unusual detail, the specific interest, the counterintuitive claim, the compelling question that makes someone stop scrolling and want to know more. The principle is identical. Create curiosity. Give people a door to knock on. The fifth secret is perhaps the most psychologically sophisticated of all, and it's the one that separates people who are merely liked from people who are genuinely influential. Lowndes calls it never the naked thank you. And it's about the extraordinary power of specificity in expressing appreciation. Most people, when they thank someone, do so in generic terms. Thanks so much, I really appreciate it. That was great. These phrases are pleasant but weightless. They don't land with any force because they could be said to anyone about anything. They don't communicate that you actually paid attention, that you understood, specifically, what the other person did and why it mattered. The naked thank you is a thank you without a reason attached. The clothed thank you, the powerful thank you is specific. Thank you for staying late on Thursday to help me fix that presentation. I know you had other things to do, and that mattered more than you probably know. But version of gratitude does something completely different. It tells the person that you saw them, not just their action, but their effort, their sacrifice, their choice. It transforms gratitude from a social nicety into an act of genuine recognition. In professional contexts, this principle operates at a level most people never fully exploit. When you send a follow-up email after a meeting and you reference something specific that the other person said, not just great meeting, but your point about the shifting behavior of Gen Z. Customers actually changed how I'm thinking about this launch. You accomplish several things simultaneously. You prove you were listening. You make them feel heard and valued. You differentiate yourself from every other person who sends generic follow-ups. And you create the beginning of a genuine relationship rather than just a transaction. In the AI economy, where so much professional communication is increasingly templated, automated, and efficient, specificity is becoming a superpower. The person who takes an extra 90 seconds to make a message actually personal is increasingly rare, which means they're increasingly valuable. In an era of automation, human attention is the luxury good. The sixth secret is about names, and it is simultaneously obvious and almost universally ignored. Everyone has heard that using someone's name makes them feel special. Most people acknowledge this, nod, and then promptly forget names the moment they hear them because they were too busy constructing their next sentence to actually absorb the information. Lowndes takes this further than the usual advice. She doesn't just recommend using names, she recommends engineering your social interactions to make remembering names easier. And she gives you specific techniques to do it. One of the most effective is simple repetition with purpose. When you introduce to someone, use their name immediately and naturally within the first few exchanges. So, Marcus, how do you know the host? And then use it again at a natural break. This isn't awkward if done with genuine warmth. In fact, it reads as confident and attentive. And the act of using the name trains your memory to hold it. But there's a deeper principle here that goes beyond memory tricks. Lowndes observes that most people treat introductions as a formality to get through. The name is exchanged, the handshake is completed, and then you move on to the actual conversation. The problem is that this treats the other person as an obstacle between you and the interesting part. But the name, the person's name, is the interesting part. It is the most personal thing about them. When you use it and use it well, you signal that you understand this. You signal that the person, not the conversation topic, is the point. In sales and business development, this principle creates relationships that generate revenue for years. The consultant who remembers not just your name but your assistant's name, your company's anniversary, your recent project, that consultant is not easily replaced by a cheaper alternative, because what they're selling isn't just expertise, it's relationship. And relationship, in any economy, is the most durable form of competitive advantage. The seventh secret pulls back from the tactical and addresses something more fundamental, the way most people think about small talk, and why that thinking is almost exactly backwards. The conventional wisdom about small talk is that it's something you endure on the way to a real conversation. You do your time discussing the weather and the traffic and how crazy work has been, and eventually things deepen into substance. Most ambitious, intelligent people quietly despise small talk for this reason. It feels shallow, it feels like a waste of time, and it feels like a performance that benefits no one. Lowndes argues the opposite. Small talk isn't the obstacle to connection, it is connection. In its earliest and most essential form, the information being exchanged doesn't matter. What matters is the emotional signal that small talk sends, which is, I am safe. I am friendly. I am not a threat. I am someone you can trust. Before two people can have a substantive conversation about anything that matters, they need to pass through this biological customs check, a brief exchange that allows both nervous systems to register the other person as an ally rather than a threat. Skipping small talk doesn't make you efficient. It makes you alarming. The practical implication of this is significant, especially for introverts and analytical types who tend to want to skip the pleasantries and get to the point. The point is never what you think it is. The point is always the relationship, and the relationship cannot begin without the small talk, the tiny, seemingly pointless ritual of two humans signaling to each other that they mean no harm. There's also a technique within this that Lowndes calls swiveling. Rather than commenting on the topic of small talk, you respond to the emotion behind it. If someone says it's crazy out there today, the surface response is to talk about traffic or weather. The swivel response is to respond to what they're actually expressing: stress, overstimulation, perhaps the feeling that life is moving too fast. I know exactly what you mean. It feels like there's always too much at once lately. Suddenly you're not talking about traffic, you're resonating. And resonance, not information, is the building block of every meaningful relationship. The eighth secret concerns one of the most damaging habits in professional and social settings, and it is so pervasive that you've almost certainly encountered it within the last week, if not the last day. Lowndes calls it match the moment. And it's about the devastating mismatch that happens when your communication style doesn't fit the emotional register of the person you're with. Here's what this looks like in practice. Someone shares a problem with you, a frustration at work, a worry about their health, a disappointment in a relationship, and you immediately go into problem-solving mode. You offer solutions, you ask clarifying questions, you analyze, you suggest, and you are completely, systematically missing the point, because they didn't come to you for solutions. They came to you to be heard. They came to you to have someone say, "That sounds really hard," before anything else, before the analysis, before the advice, before the reassurance that it'll all work out. The validation has to come first, always. This is one of the places where the insights of behavioral psychology most dramatically diverge from most people's instincts. Our instinct, especially when someone we care about is in pain, is to fix the pain as quickly as possible. But the emotional experience of being heard is not the same as the emotional experience of being advised. And confusing the two is one of the most common causes of people feeling lonely in the company of people who genuinely care about them. In leadership contexts, this takes on enormous importance. The manager who responds to an employee's struggle with immediate tactical advice, however good the advice is, misses the chance to build trust. The manager who responds first with empathy, with genuine acknowledgement of the difficulty, and only then with practical guidance, that manager creates a relationship where the employee brings their real problems forward, instead of hiding them until they become crises. The ability to match emotional register before anything else is not softness, it is precision. The ninth secret is about what Lowndes calls never be the first to break the gaze in a love scene. And while it specifically addresses romantic attraction, the underlying principle applies far beyond romance to any moment, where two people are building connection or establishing who holds the social frame. The idea draws on status, dynamics that are hardwired into primate social behavior. In almost every interaction, there is an implicit negotiation about who is the more invested party, and crucially, whoever breaks the gaze first is generally perceived as slightly more vulnerable, slightly more eager, slightly less powerful. This isn't a conscious reading. It happens automatically, beneath awareness, in the milliseconds of social processing that the brain performs constantly. The application in professional negotiations is striking. When you make a proposal and wait for a response, holding your gaze steady rather than looking away signals calm confidence, a belief that your offer has value, that you're comfortable waiting for their reaction. The person who makes an offer and then immediately looks away or starts talking to fill the silence sends an entirely different signal. They signal anxiety. And anxiety signals weakness. In job interviews, on first dates, in sales conversations, in any moment where you want to project confidence and genuine interest simultaneously. The willingness to hold the gaze, not aggressively, but warmly and steadily, creates an impression that is entirely disproportionate to its simplicity. You are not performing confidence. You are demonstrating it. The difference is everything. The 10th secret addresses the art of complimenting, and it may permanently change how you think about giving and receiving appreciation. Most compliments fail because they're either too generic, "You're so talented," too focused on appearance, "You look great," or delivered with the slightly off energy of someone who wants something in return. None of these land the way the giver intends. Lowndes introduces a technique called the tombstone compliment, a compliment so precise, so specific to the person's identity and values that it would almost be worthy of their epitaph. The idea is to compliment not the product but the person. Not great presentation, but you have this rare ability to make complicated things feel simple. I watched 3 people in that room who've been resistant to this idea for months actually start nodding. That's not a compliment about a presentation. That's a statement about who the person is. And that's the kind of compliment that stays with someone, sometimes for years. The psychological mechanism here is identity resonance. When a compliment speaks to something at the core of someone's self-concept, their values, their skills, their character, it creates a form of emotional intimacy that generic praise never can. It says, "I see you. I see who you actually are, not just what you're doing," and that experience of being truly seen is so rare and so deeply satisfying that the person who provides it becomes immediately special in the context of building professional relationships. This kind of compliment is more than flattery, it's a form of persuasion. When you articulate someone's strength to them with precision and sincerity, they don't just feel good, they also feel understood by you. And understanding creates trust, and trust creates cooperation, and cooperation creates results. The 11th secret is about the use of language in describing other people, specifically the words you choose when you introduce someone else, and the extraordinary power those words carry. Lowndes calls this the VIP treatment, and it's built on a simple insight. The way you introduce someone to others shapes how those people will treat them for the rest of the interaction. If you introduce your colleague as "This is Mark, he's S." In accounting, you've placed Mark in a category. Accountant, useful but probably not fascinating. But if you introduce Mark as "this is Mark," he has this incredible talent for finding the patterns and numbers that everyone else misses. He basically saved our last product launch. You've made Mark extraordinary before he's said a word. You've given the room a frame through which to receive him. This works in both directions with compounding power. When you introduce people with genuine enthusiasm and specificity, you signal several things at once. That you're the kind of person who pays attention to others, that you find people genuinely interesting, and that you know how to read what makes someone special. These qualities, attention, genuine interest, social perceptiveness, are exactly the qualities that make people want to be around you. By elevating others, you elevate yourself. In team leadership, this becomes a management philosophy. The leader who consistently and publicly articulates the specific strengths of their team members in meetings, in emails, in conversations, with senior leadership, creates an environment of psychological safety and high performance. People work at their best when they feel genuinely seen, and the person who sees them, names them, and champions them becomes someone they will work exceptionally hard for. The 12th secret is one that operates almost entirely beneath conscious awareness, and yet its effects are measurable and significant. It concerns the pacing of your speech specifically, the relationship between how fast you speak and how seriously people take what you say. Most people, when they feel nervous or uncertain, speed up. The pace of speech accelerates as a form of compensation. If I say everything quickly, there's less time for them to judge or reject me. The psychology behind this is understandable, but the effect is the opposite of what's intended. Fast speech reads as anxious. It reads as insecure. It reads as someone who doesn't quite believe their own message is worth your full attention. Slow speech is power. Not painfully slow, not the ponderous, self-important pause for effect that reads as parody, but the natural, unhurried pace of someone who is completely comfortable taking up space. Every president, every influential CEO, every masterful public speaker you have ever admired has this in common. They speak at a pace that gives their words room to breathe. They pause. They allow silence. And in those pauses, something remarkable happens. The listener's brain starts doing the work of filling in the meaning. It starts anticipating the next word. It starts leaning in. The speaker who controls pace controls the room. In the freelance and creator economy, where so much of your success depends on your ability to communicate your value in video calls, in recorded content, in pitches and proposals, the pace of your voice is one of your most powerful tools. It is instantly adjustable, costs nothing, and will immediately change how seriously people take you. Slow down by 15% from your natural comfort zone and watch the caliber of attention you receive change. The 13th secret concerns one of the most powerful phrases in the English language, a phrase so simple that most people either use it too infrequently or, worse, replace it with something that actively undermines their credibility. The phrase is, "I don't know," and its power comes from what it signals about everything else you say. Most people in professional settings are terrified of admitting they don't know something. The fear is that it will read as incompetence. The reality is exactly the opposite. When you acknowledge the limits of your knowledge with confidence and ease, "I don't actually know enough about that to give you a useful answer, but let me find out," you do something extraordinary. You make everything else you say more credible, because now the listener knows that when you do claim to know something, you actually know it. You've removed the possibility that you're bluffing. This is what Lowndes calls the credibility builder, the deliberate, confident acknowledgement of what you don't know. In an information environment saturated with people presenting themselves as authorities on everything, the person who says "I don't know" with genuine ease becomes paradoxically more authoritative, not less. They seem secure. They seem honest. They seem like someone who can be trusted. In the AI economy, this principle is more important than ever, as AI tools make it trivially easy to generate content on any topic. The human skill of genuine discernment, knowing what you know, knowing what you don't, and being honest about the difference becomes a premium differentiator. In a world of confident ignorance, intellectual honesty is a form of luxury. The 14th secret is about what Lowndes calls tailoring your talk, the practice of adjusting your vocabulary, your examples, and your entire communication style to the world of the person you're speaking with. This goes beyond the obvious advice to avoid jargon with it's about something deeper. The signal that you send when you demonstrate that you understand someone's world from the inside. When you're speaking with a doctor, and you use medical terminology correctly, you signal membership. You're not an outsider asking questions. You're a peer engaging with their domain. When you're speaking with a teacher and you reference the specific challenges of classroom management or curriculum design, you signal that you've paid attention to what their life actually looks like. When you're speaking with a software engineer and you can talk about technical debt, or with a chef and you understand mise en place, or with a musician and you can discuss dynamics and phrasing, you become, in that moment, someone who gets it. And being someone who gets it creates instant, powerful rapport. The preparation required for this is actually minimal. A few minutes of genuine curiosity about someone's world, what they do, what challenges they face, what they care about is enough to shift the entire tenor of a conversation. And in high-stakes professional interactions, this preparation is the difference between a meeting that produces real outcomes and a meeting that is politely endured. Here is what it costs you not to develop these skills. Every interaction you approach with the old habits, the automatic smile, the broken gaze, the self-directed attention, the forgotten names, the absent follow-through is an interaction where you left something valuable on the table. Maybe a job opportunity, maybe a friendship, maybe a partnership that would have changed your financial life, maybe just a conversation that left someone feeling better about themselves and their world. These aren't dramatic losses. No single conversation changes everything, but the accumulated weight of every connection unmade, every impression left unformed, every relationship that never grew, that weight is the difference between a life well lived and a life that happened to. We are living through an extraordinary moment in human history. Artificial intelligence is doing more of the cognitive labor every year. Technical skills are being automated. The ability to write, to code, to analyze, to design, all of these are being transformed by technology that improves on a monthly schedule. What cannot be automated, what has never been automated, what technology cannot replicate, is the specific, irreplaceable experience of one human being making another human being feel genuinely seen. The ability to connect, the ability to communicate, the ability to make someone feel, in the space of a single conversation, that they matter. This is not a soft skill. This is the skill. In the economy that is coming, the people who thrive will be the ones who can walk into any room, physical or virtual, and make every person in it feel important, understood, and glad to know them. That ability doesn't happen by accident. It is built deliberately, one interaction at a time. It is built with the techniques in this book. It is built with the commitment that underlies all of them, the genuine, practiced, discipline-backed decision to see the people in front of you. The conversation you're about to have, the next one, the one after you close this, is a chance to start building that ability. Don't waste it by doing what you've always done. Pivot your body, slow your smile, say their name, ask the question that proves you listened. See the world from where they're standing. That's the whole secret. Everything else is just practice.